Aaliyah Miller's fingers trembled as she pressed the elevator button for the 14th time in 30 seconds. The private hospital wing smelled of antiseptic and expensive leather, a combination that made her stomach twist. Behind her, she could hear Director Kwan's sharp heels clicking against marble, getting closer. "Miss Miller, you cannot just walk away from this conversation." But Aaliyah could. She absolutely could, because the conversation had involved Director Kwan's hand sliding up her thigh during what was supposed to be a performance review, his breath reeking of soju and entitlement. The elevator dinged. Aaliyah lunged inside, jabbing the button for the VIP floor, the one floor she wasn't assigned to, the one floor Director Kwan's access card couldn't reach. The doors began to close. Kwan's face appeared in the gap, red and furious. "You're finished in Seoul. I'll make sure you never work again. Do you understand me? You're nothing here." The doors sealed shut. Aaliyah's knees buckled. She caught herself against the elevator wall, her braids falling forward as she bent over, trying to breathe. Her scrubs felt too tight. Everything felt too tight. The elevator climbed. 14th floor, 15th, 16th. She had maybe 2 minutes before Kwan called security. Maybe 3 before they dragged her out of the building and put her on the next flight back to Chicago, back to nothing, back to her mother's disappointed face and her ex-boyfriend's, "I told you so." The doors opened onto the VIP floor. Silence. Thick carpet. Walls painted in soft grays. Only 3 rooms on this entire level, each one costing more per night than Aaliyah made in a month. She stepped out, looking for, what? A place to hide? A back stairwell? Her mind raced through options that didn't exist. Then she heard voices. Korean. Fast and angry. Through the partially open door of Suite 1601, she saw them. 4 men in dark suits surrounding a hospital bed. The patient wasn't visible from her angle, but she could see the medical equipment, ventilator, monitors, IV stands. One of the suited men noticed her. His hand moved to his jacket. Aaliyah's nursing instincts kicked in before her survival ones. "I'm here for the patient assessment," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She walked toward the room like she belonged there, clipboard clutched against her chest, even though it only had her lunch order scribbled on it. The man blocking the door was built like a concrete wall. "No assessment scheduled. Director Kwan sent me. Last-minute vitals check." The lie came easily. Too easily. The man's eyes narrowed. He turned, speaking rapid Korean to someone inside the room. A voice answered, deep, measured, the kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to command attention. The concrete wall stepped aside. Aaliyah walked into the room, and her breath caught. The patient in the bed wasn't unconscious. He was sitting up, partially reclined, watching her with eyes so dark they looked black in the soft lighting. Mid-30s, maybe. Sharp features that somehow remained beautiful despite the scar cutting through his left eyebrow. His hospital gown was designer, she could tell by the fabric, and his hands rested motionless on the blanket. Park Ji-sung. She'd heard the nurses whisper the name with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You're not Dr. Yoon," he said in perfect English, his eyes tracking her every micro-movement. Aaliyah's mouth went dry. "No, I'm Nurse Miller. Evening vitals." "At 3 p.m.? Behind her she heard the elevator ding. Heard Director Kwan's voice, sharp and demanding. Park Ji-sung heard it too. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Calculation. "Is Director Kwan looking for you?" he asked quietly. Aaliyah didn't answer. Didn't need to. Her face said everything. Ji-sung was silent for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then, "Check my blood pressure. Take your time. Before you find out what happens next in this impossible situation, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you're already hooked. Drop a comment telling me, would you have walked into that room? And subscribe to Love and Tension, because this story is about to get dangerous. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next." Aaliyah's hands shook as she wrapped the blood pressure cuff around Park Ji-sung's arm. She could hear Director Kwan in the hallway now, his voice raised, demanding to know which room the American nurse had entered. "Breathe normally," she whispered, pumping the cuff. The numbers appeared on the monitor, 128/82. Perfectly normal for a man who was supposedly paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident 3 months ago. Ji-sung's eyes never left her face. "What did he do?" "Who?" Aaliyah's voice cracked. "Kwan, what did he do to make you run?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. In the 3 weeks she'd been in Seoul, every interaction had been layered with politeness and indirect communication. This man spoke like he was cutting through flesh to reach bone. She swallowed. He put his hands where they didn't belong. Ji-sung's expression remained neutral, but his fingers twitched against the blanket. Just once. "I see." The door burst open. Director Kwan stood there, red-faced and breathing hard, with 2 security guards behind him, his eyes locked onto Aaliyah with pure venom. "There you are, you lying bitch!" He switched to English, probably for her benefit. You think you can accuse me? Make up stories about me? I didn't accuse you of anything, Aaliyah said, stepping back until she hit the wall of medical equipment. I just wanted to leave. Leave? You signed a 2-year contract. You owe this hospital? She owes you nothing. Ji-sung's voice cut through the room like a blade. He hadn't raised his volume. Didn't need to. Kwon turned, seemed to remember who he was addressing, and his face went from red to pale in seconds. Mr. Park, I apologize for the disturbance. This nurse is not authorized to be in your room. She's being terminated for what? Ji-sung asked. For running away from you after you sexually assaulted her? The room went silent. Even the heart monitor seemed to quiet. Kwon's mouth opened and closed. That's not... She's lying. Is she? Ji-sung tilted his head slightly. Because I just had a very interesting conversation with your wife yesterday. She was visiting her mother on the 12th floor. We spoke about hospital administration, about how dedicated you are to your work, how you sometimes stay late for private reviews with new staff members. The security guards exchanged glances. I think, Ji-sung continued, his tone conversational, almost pleasant, that your wife would be very interested in reviewing the security footage from your office. Today's footage, around 2:45 p.m. Kwon's face had gone from pale to gray. Mr. Park, please, leave. It wasn't a shout, wasn't even emphatic. But Kwon left, stumbling backward, the security guards following. The door clicked shut. Aaliyah realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, her knees threatening to give out. Thank you. God, thank you. Don't. Ji-sung's eyes were still on her, analytical and cold. Don't thank me yet. Sit down. There was a chair next to the bed. Aaliyah sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. What's your full name? He asked. Aaliyah Rose Miller. How long have you been in Seoul? 3 weeks. Why are you here? The questions came fast, precisely targeted. Aaliyah found herself answering automatically. I needed a fresh start. My nursing license transferred. The pay was good. I thought I could build something new. And now? Now I'm probably getting deported. The reality crashed over her. Kwon meant what he said. He has connections. He'll make sure I can't work, can't stay. I'll be on a plane by tomorrow. Ji-sung was quiet for a long moment, watching her. She watched him back, noting the details her nurse's training automatically cataloged, the slight muscle atrophy in his legs that suggested genuine paralysis, the surgical scar on his lower back visible when the gown shifted, the way his upper body remained perfectly still, conserving energy like someone who knew their mobility was limited. I need a nurse, he said finally. Aaliyah blinked. What? A private nurse, live-in. Someone who understands discretion. His eyes narrowed slightly. Someone who has nowhere else to go. The words should have offended her, should have felt like exploitation. Instead, they felt like exactly what they were, a transaction. Why me? She asked. Because you just witnessed me threaten a hospital director using information I shouldn't have. Because you're desperate enough to be grateful, but smart enough to know this isn't charity. He paused. And because you don't speak Korean well enough to understand the conversations happening around me. That's valuable. Aaliyah's mind raced. Live-in nursing wasn't uncommon for wealthy patients, especially in Seoul. The pay would be substantial. More than that, it would keep her in the country, keep her working, keep her away from the failure waiting back home. But something in his tone made her ask, "What aren't you telling me?" A flicker of something, surprise, respect, crossed his face. Many things, but here's what matters. Director Kwon will be dealt with. You will be transferred to my private employment, effective immediately. You will live in my home, maintain my medical care, and ask no questions about my business. Your business, Aaliyah repeated slowly. You mean the part where 4 armed men guard your hospital room? I mean the part where you don't ask questions. His voice didn't rise, but the steel in it was unmistakable. Do we have an understanding? She should say no, should run, should call the embassy and beg for help getting home. Instead, she heard herself say, "What's the pay?" Ji-sung told her. Aaliyah's eyes widened. It was triple what the hospital had been paying, enough to send money home to her mother, enough to actually save something. Room and board included, he added. Personal security provided. Contract is for 6 months, renewable if both parties agree. And if I want to leave before 6 months, you can leave any time. He said it simply, like it was true. But if you do, you'll find yourself without references, without a visa sponsor, and without options. Director Kwon will make sure of that. I'm offering you protection from him. In exchange, you offer me discretion and competent care. It was a trap dressed as an opportunity. Aaliyah knew that, but it was a trap with health insurance and a salary. I'll need to think. You have 60 seconds, Ji-sung interrupted. Kwon is probably calling immigration right now. In 1 hour, you'll either be in my car heading to my home or in a detention center waiting for deportation. Aaliyah's heart hammered. That's not fair. No, he agreed. It's not. but it's your reality. 50 seconds. She looked at him, really looked. Saw the intelligence behind those dark eyes, the calculating patience, the absolute certainty that he would get what he wanted. This was a man who orchestrated outcomes like chess moves, and she was a pawn who could either stay on the board or get swept away. I want the contract in writing, she said, with a termination clause that lets me leave with 2 weeks' notice and a clean reference. No. Then no deal. Ji-sung's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. 1 week's notice. Reference will state you provided adequate care. Nothing more. Good care, Aaliyah countered. The reference says I provided good care. Excellent care, if you actually provided. Deal. They stared at each other. Then Ji-sung lifted his hand slightly from the blanket, just a few inches, the most movement she'd seen from him. Aaliyah understood. She reached out and shook his hand. His grip was strong, very strong for someone supposedly paralyzed. My driver will bring you to collect your belongings from your apartment, he said, releasing her hand. You have 2 hours to pack. Bring everything you need for 6 months. Taewon will provide you with a phone and your new ID badge. Taewon, the man who wanted to shoot you when you walked in. Ji-sung pressed a call button. He's my head of security. You'll be seeing a lot of him. The concrete wall from earlier entered. Up close, he was even more intimidating. 6'4", scarred knuckles, a face that looked like it had lost arguments with brick walls and won. Sir? His English was heavily accented but clear. Taewon, this is Nurse Miller. She's my new private care provider. Take her to collect her things. Have the contracts drawn up. Standard NDA, enhanced privacy clauses. Taewon's eyes flickered to Aaliyah, assessing her like she was a potential threat. She stared back, refusing to look away. Finally, he nodded. Yes, sir. As Aaliyah stood to leave, Ji-sung spoke again. Miss Miller. She turned. When we arrive at my home, you'll meet my regular physician, Dr. Han. He'll brief you on my medical needs. Pay attention. I don't like repeating myself. Understood. And Miss Miller? His dark eyes held hers. Welcome to your new life. Try not to ruin it by being curious. The warning was clear, crystal clear. Aaliyah nodded and followed Taewon out of the room, her mind spinning. What the hell had she just agreed to? The answer came 2 hours later when Taiwan's black Mercedes pulled up to Ji-sung's home. It wasn't a home, it was a fortress. The estate sat in Seongbuk-dong, where Seoul's wealthiest families lived behind high walls and private security. The gate alone probably cost more than Aaliyah's nursing degree. As they drove through, she counted 6 cameras visible, 4 guards patrolling, motion sensors on every tree. The house itself was modern minimalist architecture, all glass and steel and sharp angles. Beautiful, cold, designed to impress and intimidate. Taewon led her inside, where a woman in her 60s waited in the marble foyer. She was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, but her posture radiated authority. Mrs. Beck, Taewon said, the new nurse. Mrs. Beck looked Aaliyah up and down with the critical eye of someone evaluating livestock. She said something in rapid Korean. Taewon responded. Mrs. Beck frowned. She says, Taewon translated, that you are very tall and very dark, and Mr. Park's mother will not approve. Aaliyah's spine straightened. Tell her I'm not here for approval. I'm here to provide medical care, Taewon translated. Mrs. Beck's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. She nodded once, then turned and walked away, gesturing for Aaliyah to follow. The tour was quick and efficient. First floor, kitchen, dining room, living spaces, all immaculate and barely used. Second floor, offices, library, gym. Third floor, bedrooms. Mrs. Beck opened a door to reveal a suite roughly the size of Aaliyah's entire Chicago apartment. Yours, Mrs. Beck said in heavily accented English. The room was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden, a king-sized bed with silk sheets, an attached bathroom with a soaking tub. There was even a small sitting area with medical supplies already stocked. Mr. Park's room is there. Mrs. Bayek pointed to the door at the end of the hall. You come when called. You do not disturb otherwise. Understood. Mrs. Bayek studied her for a long moment, then said something in Korean that sounded almost kind. She patted Aaliyah's arm and left. Aaliyah stood alone in her new room, her 2 suitcases looking pathetic on the expensive floor. Her phone buzzed. New number. The message was in English. Dr. Han will arrive at 7 p.m. to brief you. Dinner is at 8. Dress is formal. Taewon. She checked her watch. 6 p.m. 1 hour to shower, unpack, and figure out what formal meant. She was halfway through the shower when she started laughing. Not happy laughter, the slightly hysterical kind that comes from life spinning completely out of control. 24 hours ago, her biggest problem was figuring out Seoul's subway system. Now she was living in a mansion, employed by a man who commanded fear with a whisper, surrounded by armed guards. The laughter died quickly. Because beneath the luxury and the security, she knew the truth. She'd just sold herself into a beautiful cage. And Park Ji-sung held the only key. Darhan arrived precisely at 7 p.m. He was younger than Aaliyah expected, maybe 40, with wire-rimmed glasses and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much. "Miss Miller," he shook her hand briskly. "I understand you're a registered nurse with emergency room experience?" "Yes, 3 years at Chicago Memorial." "Good. You'll need those skills." He opened a tablet, pulling up files. "Mr. Park's medical history is complicated and largely classified. What I can tell you is this. 3 months ago, he sustained severe spinal trauma in what was officially reported as a car accident. The damage was to L1, L2 vertebrae, resulting in complete paralysis from the waist down." Aaliyah listened, her clinical mind engaging. "Recovery prognosis? 0. The damage is permanent." Dr. Han's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "He requires daily physical therapy to prevent muscle atrophy, regular medication for nerve pain and muscle spasms, and monitoring for autonomic dysreflexia. Are you familiar with that condition?" "Yes. Dangerous spike in blood pressure due to stimuli below the injury level." "Correct. It can be fatal if not managed immediately." He handed her the tablet. "These are his medications, dosing schedules, and emergency protocols. Memorize them." Aaliyah scrolled through the information. The medication list was extensive. Pain management, muscle relaxants, antispasmodics, blood pressure regulators. But something caught her eye. "He's not on any antidepressants," she noted. Dr. Han's expression closed off. "Mr. Park doesn't believe in them. That's not a medical decision, that's a personal preference. Given the psychological impact of sudden paralysis, he should at least—" "Miss Miller," Dr. Han's voice hardened, "you are here to follow protocols, not establish them. Mr. Park has made his wishes clear regarding psychiatric care. You will respect those wishes." The warning was obvious. Aaliyah nodded, filing the information away. A man who refused psychological support after traumatic injury was a man carrying weight that would eventually crush him, but that wasn't her problem. Not yet, anyway. "Physical therapy schedule?" she asked. "Daily, 9 a.m. The gym on the second floor is equipped. I'll supervise the first few sessions, then you'll take over." He stood. "Any questions?" "About 1,000. But Aaliyah asked the only one that mattered. "What happens if there's a medical emergency beyond my scope?" "You call me. I'm 10 minutes away. If I can't get here in time—" He paused. "Do your best. Mr. Park values competence. Demonstrate that, and you'll do well here. And if I don't," Dr. Han looked at her with something approaching pity, "then you won't be here very long." After he left, Aaliyah changed for dinner, choosing the most formal outfit she'd packed, a simple black dress that suddenly felt too casual for this house. She made her way downstairs, following the sound of quiet conversation. The dining room was even more intimidating than her bedroom, a table that could seat 20, though only 2 places were set, crystal glasses, real silver. And at the head of the table, in a motorized wheelchair that probably cost more than a car, sat Park Ji-sung. He'd changed too. Black suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His hair was styled back from his face, emphasizing those sharp features and the scar through his eyebrow. He looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, or a most wanted poster. "Miss Miller," he gestured to the seat on his right, "please, sit." Aaliyah sat, hyper-aware of every movement, every sound. A staff member, not Mrs. Beck, appeared with wine. Aaliyah shook her head. "Water, please." Ji-sung's lips curved slightly. "You don't drink?" "Not on duty." "You're always on duty now." "Exactly." That almost smile again. "Dr. Han says you asked good questions, that you have emergency room instincts. I try to be prepared. Preparation is the difference between living and dying, in my experience." He took a sip of wine. "Tell me about Chicago. Why did you leave?" The question was casual, but Aaliyah sensed the calculation behind it. He was gathering information, building a profile. She decided honesty was safer than lies he'd eventually uncover. "Bad relationship. Worse breakup. My ex had connections in the medical community. Made it difficult to work. When the hospital started cutting my shifts, I knew I needed to leave the city entirely." She met his eyes. Seoul seemed far enough away. "From him or from yourself?" The accuracy of the question stung. "Both." Ji-sung nodded like she'd confirmed something. "We're alike in that way. Sometimes geography is the only escape from who we were." "Who were you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. His expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Someone who could walk." The reminder was pointed. Aaliyah felt her cheeks heat. "I apologize. That was inappropriate." "Yes, it was." He set down his wine glass. "But I'll allow 1 question per day. You've used yours. Choose more carefully tomorrow." Dinner arrived, some kind of beef dish that probably had a French name Aaliyah couldn't pronounce. They ate in silence for a while, the only sounds the gentle clink of silverware and the distant hum of the house. Finally, Ji-sung spoke. The rules of this house are simple. You provide medical care. You don't ask questions about my business. You don't speak to outsiders about what you see or hear. You maintain absolute discretion. And in return? In return, you're protected, paid, and allowed to continue your career. He paused. And Director Kwan will never trouble you again. Something in his tone made Aaliyah look up sharply. What did you do? That counts as tomorrow's question if you want it answered. She bit back her curiosity. Never mind. Wise choice. He pushed his plate away. Barely touched, she noticed. Your first physical therapy session is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. I value punctuality. Yes, sir. Ji-sung. When we're alone, you may call me Ji-sung. It felt like a gift and a trap simultaneously. Ji-sung, she repeated, testing the name. He watched her for a long moment, those dark eyes revealing nothing. Then, you may go. Mrs. Baek will show you the evening routine. Aaliyah stood, then hesitated. Can I ask something that's not about your business? You can ask. Why did you really hire me? There are hundreds of qualified nurses in Seoul, nurses who speak Korean, who understand the culture, who wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions. Ji-sung's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind his eyes. Perhaps I wanted someone who would ask uncomfortable questions. Or perhaps, he tilted his head slightly, I wanted someone who understands what it's like to run out of options, someone who knows desperation intimately enough to recognize it in others. You don't seem desperate. No, he agreed. I don't. But appearances are the most reliable form of deception, Miss Miller. You of all people should understand that. He wheeled himself toward the elevator, leaving Aaliyah standing in the dining room, her heart pounding with the certainty that she'd just been told something important. She just didn't know what. The first week passed in a blur of routines and revelations. Mornings began at 6 a.m. Aaliyah would check Ji-sung's vitals, administer medications, then prepare him for physical therapy. Dr. Han supervised the first 3 sessions, watching as Aaliyah helped Ji-sung through the exercises designed to maintain upper body strength and prevent muscle deterioration in his legs. The sessions were brutal. Ji-sung pushed himself with an intensity that bordered on self-punishment, his jaw clenched against pain he refused to acknowledge. By the 3rd day, Aaliyah stopped asking if he needed a break. He never did. Good, Dr. Han told her after the 4th session. You're learning not to coddle him. He hates that. I noticed. Aaliyah wiped sweat from her forehead. The gym was temperature-controlled, but the work was exhausting. He's going to injure himself if he keeps pushing this hard. He knows his limits. Does he? Because from where I'm standing, he's deliberately testing them. Dr. Han studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're perceptive. That's good. Use that perception to keep him alive, not to psychoanalyze him. After Dr. Han left, Aaliyah's education began in earnest. Taiwan became her unlikely guide to Ji-sung's world. He taught her the names of the men who came and went from the house, always using first names only, always with a subtle warning about which ones could be trusted. Ryu handles logistics, Taiwan explained one afternoon, pointing out a slim man in an expensive suit. Never trust him in private. He's smart but ambitious. And that one? Aaliyah nodded toward a younger man, maybe 25, with nervous energy. Byom Seok. He runs the tech side. Harmless but talks too much. Don't tell him anything you don't want everyone to know within an hour. The warnings continued. Slowly, Aaliyah began to understand the structure of Ji-sung's organization. It wasn't a company in the traditional sense, though there were legitimate businesses involved. It was something older, more complex, a network of obligations and loyalties that extended throughout Seoul's underbelly. She never asked what they actually did, didn't need to. The expensive cars, the deference from men twice Ji-sung's age, the way conversations stopped when she entered rooms, it all painted a clear picture. Park Ji-sung was dangerous, and everyone knew it except, perhaps, the law. On day 8, her carefully maintained ignorance shattered. She was in Ji-sung's room, a space she'd only entered for medical necessities, administering his evening medications. The room was as minimalist as the rest of the house. Dark wood furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows with blackout shades, a hospital-grade bed that looked nothing like a hospital bed. Ji-sung sat in his wheelchair by the window, looking out at the garden lights. "How are you settling in?" he asked. "Well enough." Aaliyah prepared the pill organizer, double-checking dosages. "Mrs. Baek is teaching me basic Korean, useful phrases. Such as, 'Where is the bathroom?' and 'Please don't shoot me.'" His laugh surprised her. It was genuine, unguarded, the first time she'd heard him laugh. "Taewon's influence, I assume. He has a unique teaching style. He likes you. That's rare." Ji-sung turned his wheelchair to face her. "He said you asked intelligent questions, that you don't panic easily." Should I be panicking? Most people do in their second week here. They realize what this house actually is. Aaliyah handed him the pills and water. "And what is it? You tell me." She met his eyes, deciding on honesty. It's the headquarters of something illegal but sophisticated. You're not Yakuza. Wrong country, wrong structure. Not a typical gang. Too organized, too connected. My guess? You run some kind of import-export operation that exists in legal gray areas. Import-export. He smiled, taking his pills. That's diplomatic. I'm a nurse, not a detective. As long as you're not running a human trafficking ring, I can live with ambiguity. The smile vanished. I would never traffic humans. Ever. The intensity in his voice was startling. That's a line I don't cross. Okay, Aaliyah believed him. What lines do you cross? That's more than one question per day. You offered to let me tell you what this house is. I'm clarifying. Ji-sung studied her, then wheeled himself to his desk. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, and held it out. Read this. Aaliyah took the folder hesitantly. Inside were documents, shipping manifests, customs forms, all in Korean with English translations attached. She scanned them, her nurse's training helping her process complex information quickly. Electronics, medical supplies, pharmaceuticals. You smuggle medicine, she said slowly. I import medicine that governments say is too expensive for their citizens to afford. I redistribute medical equipment that hospitals discard while people die for lack of basic care. I move pharmaceuticals across borders when patent laws value profit over human life. He gestured to the papers. That's what I do. Judge me if you want. Aaliyah looked at the manifests again. Cancer medications, insulin, EpiPens, all items she knew cost fortunes in some countries while being available cheaply in others. This is still illegal, she said. Yes? People have probably died because of mistakes in your supply chain. Wrong dosages, contaminated supplies. Fewer than die without access at all, Ji-sung interrupted. I'm not a hero, Miss Miller. I'm a criminal who found a profitable way to ease his conscience. Don't romanticize what I do. I'm not. She closed the folder, handing it back. I'm trying to understand why you're telling me this. Because you've been here 8 days, and you haven't asked the obvious questions. Because you don't gossip with the staff or pry into things that don't concern you. Because, he paused, because I need you to understand what you're part of now. If you're going to stay, you stay knowing everything. And if I want to leave, then you leave, he said it simply. I meant what I said. You're not a prisoner, but if you leave, you take this knowledge with you. That makes you either an ally or a threat. The implication hung in the air between them. I'm not going to report you, Aaliyah said quietly. If that's what you're worried about. Why not? She thought about it. Really thought about it. Because I've worked in emergency rooms where people died because they couldn't afford insulin. Because I've seen parents choose between rent and their child's EpiPen. Because, she met his eyes. Because maybe some laws deserve to be broken. Something shifted in Ji-sung's expression. Not quite trust, not quite relief, but something. Thank you for your honesty, he said. Is that what you wanted? Honesty? I wanted to know if you have a conscience that can live with complexity. Most people don't. They want clear heroes and villains. He turned back to the window. But the world isn't that simple, is it? No, Aaliyah agreed. It's not. That night, lying in her expensive bed in her expensive room, Aaliyah stared at the ceiling and wondered what the hell she was doing. She'd come to Seoul to escape complications, and instead, she'd walked straight into the most complicated situation of her life. But she didn't pack her bags. She didn't call the embassy. She stayed. By week 3, Aaliyah had developed a rhythm. Wake at 6, check vitals, administer medications, physical therapy at 9, lunch at noon, usually alone while Ji-sung took calls in his office. Afternoons were for medical chart reviews and equipment maintenance. Evenings were for dinner with Ji-sung, where they maintained careful conversation about neutral topics, books, music, her nursing training, never about his business, never about his accident, never about the armed men who came and went at all hours. But on day 22, the rhythm broke. Aaliyah woke to shouting, Korean, fast and angry. She grabbed her phone, 3:47 a.m., and pulled on a robe, her heart hammering. In the hallway, Taiwan stood outside Ji-sung's door, weapon drawn. He saw Aaliyah and shook his head sharply. Stay in your room. What's happening? Stay in your room. But she could hear Ji-sung's voice through the door, strained, tight with pain. Her medical training overrode everything else. She pushed past Taewon. Miss Miller. She opened the door. Ji-sung was on the floor beside his bed, his wheelchair overturned beside him. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. And his legs were moving, not much, just small spasms, muscles contracting involuntarily, but movement nonetheless. Autonomic dysreflexia, Aaliyah said immediately, dropping to her knees beside him. She checked his pulse, racing over 140. How long? 20 minutes, Ji-sung gritted out. His hands were clenched in the carpet. Can't find the trigger. Aaliyah's mind raced through the protocol. Autonomic dysreflexia was a medical emergency for paraplegics, something below the injury level causing the nervous system to overreact, spiking blood pressure to dangerous levels, could cause seizures, stroke, death. Taewon, get Dr. Han, she ordered, now. Taewon hesitated only a second before running. Aaliyah began her assessment, checking the usual triggers. Catheter blockage, tight clothing, pressure sores, nothing. Ji-sung's blood pressure was climbing. She could see it in his face, in the vein throbbing at his temple. Talk to me, she said, keeping her voice calm, even as her hands worked. What were you doing before it started? Couldn't sleep. Was exercising? Exercising at 3 a.m.? Couldn't sleep, he repeated. His jaw clenched so tight, she heard his teeth grinding. She found it then. A deep pressure mark on his lower back where he'd been lying on the bed's control remote. The pressure against insensate skin had triggered the response. Found it. She helped him shift position, removing the pressure. Breathe, slow and steady. Your blood pressure needs to come down. I know. What needs to happen? He gasped. Then stop fighting me and let me help. She elevated his head and shoulders, following protocol. Where's your emergency medication? Bathroom, cabinet. Aaliyah ran, found the nifedipine, blood pressure medication for exactly this situation. She crushed the tablet, knowing sublingual absorption would work faster. When she returned, Ji-sung's color had worsened. Open, she commanded. He did. She placed the medication under his tongue. Don't swallow. Let it dissolve. They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Aaliyah monitored his pulse, watched his breathing, noted every subtle change. Slowly, so slowly, his color began to improve. His breathing steadied. Dr. Han burst through the door, medical bag in hand. What happened? Autonomic dysreflexia. Pressure trigger from bed remote. I've administered 10 mg nifedipine sublingual. He's stabilizing. Aaliyah rattled off the information precisely, professionally. Dr. Han checked Ji-sung's vital signs, nodding. Good call. Quick response likely prevented a stroke. He looked at Aaliyah with new respect. You've seen this before? Twice, both times in the ER, both times we weren't fast enough. She didn't say that both patients had died. Didn't need to. Dr. Han stayed for 30 minutes, monitoring until Ji-sung's blood pressure returned to normal. Then he pulled Aaliyah aside. That was excellent work. You saved his life. I did my job. No, Dr. Han shook his head. Most nurses would have panicked, waited for me. You acted. That's the difference between competence and excellence. He paused. Mr. Park chose well. After Dr. Han left, Aaliyah helped Ji-sung back into bed. He was exhausted, the medical crisis having drained him, but his eyes remained sharp, watching her. You were right, he said quietly. About what? I do push too hard. Test my limits. He looked at his legs, still now, motionless again. I hate these useless things. Hate that they're part of me, but not part of me. It was the most honest thing he'd said about his condition. Aaliyah sat on the edge of the bed, professional distance momentarily forgotten. They're not useless, she said. They're healing. Differently than you want, but healing. Healing into dead weight. Healing into a new reality that you get to define. You're not less than you were, Ji-sung. You're different. That's not the same thing. He laughed, bitter and sharp. You sound like a therapist. Good. Because you need one. His eyes snapped to hers, dangerous. We've discussed this. No, Dr. Han discussed it. I'm discussing it now. She met his glare with her own stubborn determination. You can fire me if you want, but first hear this. You almost died tonight because you were punishing yourself at 3 a.m. That's not physical therapy. That's self-destruction, and I won't enable it. Silence, heavy and thick. Then, you're very brave or very stupid. Both, probably. Aaliyah stood. I'm going back to bed. Call if you need anything. And Ji-sung, maybe tomorrow we talk about adding some psychiatric support to your treatment plan. Not because you're weak, because you're strong enough to admit you need help. She left before he could respond, her heart pounding, certain she'd just ended her employment. Instead, the next morning, there was a note slid under her door. Dr. Yoon will begin therapy sessions next week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. You win. J.S. Aaliyah smiled. Small victories. The following days brought a shift in their dynamic. Ji-sung was less guarded, more willing to let her see the frustration and pain behind his controlled facade. The physical therapy sessions became conversations about his life before the accident, about hers, about everything except what had actually caused his paralysis. On day 30, Aaliyah finally asked. They were in the gym, Ji-sung working through resistance exercises while she spotted him. His shirt was off, necessary for the workout, and she could see the full extent of his scars, not just the surgical one on his back, but others. Old ones, a bullet graze on his shoulder, what looked like a knife wound across his ribs. How did it really happen? She asked. Ji-sung paused mid-rep. How did what happen? The accident. Because those scars aren't from a car crash. He lowered the weights slowly, deliberately. That's more than one question. You gave me permission to ask about anything medical. Your psychological state is medical. Your history is medical. So how did it happen? For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was betrayed by someone I trusted. Someone in my organization who decided he could run things better than me. He arranged a meeting, ambushed me, put 3 bullets in my back. Ji-sung's voice was flat, emotionless. The doctor said I was lucky. The bullets missed my spinal cord. It was the fall, 15 feet onto concrete, that did the real damage. Jesus, Aaliyah breathed. The man who shot me is dead now. So are the 5 people who helped him. He said it like he was discussing the weather. That's the world I live in. People betray you, you eliminate the threat. It's simple. It's horrible. Yes, he agreed. It is, but it's also necessary. In my world, weakness gets you killed. Mercy gets you killed. Hesitation gets you killed. His dark eyes found hers. Now you know. Still want to stay? Aaliyah thought about it. Thought about the man who'd shot someone in the back, about Ji-sung's calm acceptance of killing 5 people in retaliation, thought about the moral complexity of a man who smuggled life-saving medicine but murdered without hesitation. Yes, she said, I still want to stay. Why? Because I think you're more than the worst thing you've ever done, and I think you know that, which is why you keep testing me. You want me to leave so you can confirm what you already believe about yourself, that you're beyond saving. Ji-sung stared at her, something unreadable crossing his face. You don't know me as well as you think. Maybe not, but I know that you threatened Director Kwan to protect me. I know you pay your staff well and treat them fairly. I know you could have let yourself die from autonomic dysreflexia rather than call for help, but you didn't. She crossed her arms. I know you're complicated, Ji-sung, but complicated isn't the same as irredeemable. He was quiet for so long, she thought she'd overstepped. Then he reached for his shirt, pulling it on with practiced efficiency. Tomorrow, he said, Taiwan is going to teach you basic self-defense. If you're staying, you need to know how to protect yourself. From what? From the consequences of being associated with me. He wheeled toward the door, then paused. And Aaliyah, thank you for staying, even when staying is the more difficult choice. It was the first time he'd used her first name. Week 6 brought winter to Seoul. The garden frosted over, and the house's heating system worked overtime against the cold. Aaliyah settled into routines that felt almost normal. Morning vitals, physical therapy, lunch with Mrs. Bayek practicing Korean, afternoons reviewing medical charts, evenings with Ji-sung discussing everything except the obvious tension building between them. Because there was tension, the kind that came from proximity and forced intimacy, from seeing someone at their worst and their best, from shared secrets and growing trust. Aaliyah felt it most acutely during physical therapy, when her hands were on his shoulders, his back, steadying him through exercises. When his skin was warm under her palms and his breath came in controlled gasps, and she had to remind herself this was professional, this was medical, this was not what her accelerating heartbeat wanted it to be. She thought he felt it too, noticed the way his eyes tracked her movements, the way conversations lingered longer than necessary, the way he found excuses to call her to his office for medical consultations that were really just talks about books they'd both read. But neither acknowledged it, couldn't acknowledge it. The power imbalance alone made anything between them impossible, never mind the ethical complications of a nurse-patient relationship, never mind the fact that Ji-sung was literally a criminal who'd killed people. On day 42, everything changed. Aaliyah was in the kitchen with Mrs. Bayek, learning to make kimchi, when Taiwan appeared in the doorway. His face was grim. Mr. Park needs you, now. She didn't ask questions, just followed him upstairs to Ji-sung's office. Inside, Ji-sung sat at his desk with 3 men Aaliyah didn't recognize. The tension in the room was suffocating. Gentlemen, Ji-sung said in English, gesturing to Aaliyah, this is Miss Miller, my private nurse. Miss Miller, these men are from the Ministry of Justice. They have some questions about my medical treatment. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. Ministry of Justice meant law enforcement, meant investigation. The lead investigator, a thin man with cold eyes, stood. Miss Miller, how long have you been employed by Mr. Park? 6 weeks. And in that time, have you witnessed anything unusual? Any visitors who seemed threatening? Any discussions about illegal activities? She looked at Ji-sung. He gave the slightest shake of his head. No, she said. I provide medical care. I'm not privy to Mr. Park's business dealings. You live in this house. You must see things, hear things. I see a patient who requires extensive medical management. I hear his physical therapy sessions and his therapy appointments with Dr. Yoon. She kept her voice steady, professional. I'm a nurse, not an investigator. The interrogation continued for 30 minutes. They asked about medications. Was she hiding anything? Destroying evidence? They asked about visitors. Who came? When? Why? They asked about money. Had Ji-sung offered her bribes for silence? Aaliyah answered every question with the same calm professionalism she'd used in depositions for malpractice cases. She gave them nothing because there was nothing medical to give. The illegal parts of Ji-sung's operation existed entirely outside her scope of care. Finally, they left. Ji-sung waited until the front door closed before speaking. Thank you. For what? For lying convincingly. I didn't lie, Aaliyah said. I told them the truth. I'm your nurse. What you do beyond medical care isn't my concern. They'll be watching now, following you, trying to catch you in inconsistencies. His jaw tightened. This complicates things. What things? Before he could answer, Taiwan entered. Sir, we have a problem. The shipment from Taiwan. Customs flagged it. They're demanding full inspection. Ji-sung's expression went cold and calculating. When? Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. That's the antibiotics shipment, Ji-sung muttered, more to himself than them. 5,000 doses of medication that hospitals here charge $300 per dose for. We sell for $30. He looked at Taiwan. If Customs opens that container, they'll find the unmanifested pharmaceuticals. That's 15 years in prison minimum. Aaliyah's medical mind immediately grasped the stakes. Those antibiotics treat resistant infections. People die without them. Yes, Ji-sung agreed, which is why losing this shipment isn't an option. What followed was a masterclass in criminal logistics. Ji-sung made calls, speaking rapid Korean punctuated with English phrases. Taiwan worked his laptop, pulling up shipping manifests and customs schedules. Ryu appeared with cash, literal briefcases of cash. And through it all, Aaliyah watched, understanding for the first time the scope of what Ji-sung actually did. This wasn't just smuggling. It was a shadow medical supply chain serving people who'd been priced out of survival by legitimate systems. At midnight, Ji-sung finally leaned back in his wheelchair, exhausted. It's handled. The container will be lost in customs paperwork for 72 hours. Enough time to reroute it. Taiwan and Ryu left. Aaliyah remained. You should go to bed, Ji-sung said, not looking at her. You should too. I'm fine. You're exhausted. Your blood pressure is probably elevated. You haven't taken your evening medications. She crossed her arms. Bed. Now, he smiled, tired and genuine. Anyone ever tell you you're bossy? I'm a nurse. It's in the job description. She helped him to bed, a process that had become routine over 6 weeks, but somehow felt different tonight. Maybe because she'd just witnessed him orchestrate a criminal operation to save lives. Maybe because she was realizing how deeply she'd become complicit in his world. As she prepared his medications, Ji-sung spoke quietly. You could leave. Tonight. Take what you know to those investigators. Cut a deal. Get immunity and a free flight home. Aaliyah paused, pill bottle in hand. Is that what you want? I want you to understand your options. My option is to do my job. She handed him the pills and water, which is keeping you alive and healthy, not betraying you to law enforcement. Why? It was the same question he'd asked weeks ago, but the answer had changed. Back then, she'd stayed because she had nowhere else to go. Now, because I believe what you're doing matters, she said slowly, working through her thoughts as she spoke. The system is broken. People die because they can't afford medication that costs pennies to manufacture. You're not Robin Hood. You profit from this. But you're also filling a gap that shouldn't exist. And that means something. Ji-sung watched her with those dark, unreadable eyes. You've changed since you arrived. Become harder, more willing to compromise your ethics. Maybe. Or maybe I just understand now that ethics aren't black and white, that sometimes the right thing exists in gray areas that make you uncomfortable. That's a dangerous philosophy. I'm living in a house full of armed men, working for a criminal who saves lives and takes them with equal efficiency. I think I'm past worried about philosophical danger. He laughed, that genuine laugh she heard so rarely. Point taken. Aaliyah turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Aaliyah. She looked back. If something happens to me, if the investigators find something, if there's an arrest, you tell them everything. Cooperate fully. Save yourself. Ji-sung. Promise me. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she'd never betray him, but the seriousness in his eyes made her nod. I promise. It was a lie. They both knew it. The next morning, Aaliyah woke to silence. Wrong kind of silence. The house always had ambient noise, guards changing shifts, Mrs. Black in the kitchen, the hum of security systems. This was empty silence. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. The house was nearly deserted. Only Taiwan remained, standing guard in the foyer. Where is everyone? She asked. Gone. Mr. Park sent them away last night after you went to bed. Taewoon's face was grim. The investigators are coming back today with a warrant. He's protecting the staff by creating distance. Where's Ji-sung? His office. He's been there since 4 a.m. Aaliyah found him exactly where Taewon said, surrounded by documents he was methodically feeding into a shredder. He looked up when she entered. You should pack, he said calmly. Taewon has arranged a car to take you to the airport. Your contract is fulfilled. References prepared. You'll have no legal exposure. I'm not leaving. Aaliyah, I'm not leaving, she repeated firmly. If investigators are coming, you need a medical professional present, someone to verify your condition, to ensure they don't violate your rights as a patient. It's exactly how this works. She sat across from him. Besides, what are they going to charge you with? All the actually illegal stuff is handled by other people, right? You're just a paralyzed man managing legitimate businesses from home. Ji-sung studied her, something like pride crossing his face. You've learned too much. You taught me. That was a mistake. Was it? Aaliyah leaned forward. Or was it exactly what you wanted? Someone who understands your world enough to navigate it. Someone you can trust because they're complicit enough to have skin in the game. The silence stretched between them, charged with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Ji-sung smiled. You're dangerous, Aaliyah Miller. Good. So are you. The investigators arrived at noon with a warrant and 5 officers. They tore through the house for 6 hours, photographing everything, seizing computers and documents, questioning both Ji-sung and Aaliyah extensively. But they found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Ji-sung had been preparing for this moment for months, maybe years. Every illegal record existed only digitally and encrypted. Every physical document was either destroyed or carefully neutral. By 6 p.m., the lead investigator stood in Ji-sung's office, frustrated and empty-handed. This isn't over, he warned. I look forward to your next visit, Ji-sung replied pleasantly. Perhaps call ahead next time. We'll have tea prepared. After they left, the house felt violated. Furniture moved, belongings disturbed, the illusion of safety shattered. Ji-sung sat in his office, staring at the mess, his expression unreadable. Are you okay? Aaliyah asked quietly. They'll be back, with better warrants, better evidence. This was just the opening move. Then we prepare for the next one. He looked at her sharply. We? I'm not going anywhere, Ji-sung. I made that clear. You're a fool. Probably. She started gathering scattered papers. But I'm your fool, apparently. So let's clean this up and figure out our next move. They worked in silence for an hour, restoring order to chaos. And somewhere in that silence, something shifted. The line between employer and employee, between patient and nurse, between criminal and accomplice, it blurred and reformed into something neither of them had intended. Something dangerous, something inevitable. Act 4, the revelation. Week 8 brought an uneasy calm. The investigators didn't return, but their presence lingered like a threat. Ji-sung became more cautious, more controlled. His therapy sessions with Dr. Yoon intensified, and his physical therapy took on a new urgency. Push harder, he demanded during one particularly brutal session. You're already at your limit, Aaliyah argued. I don't have limits. I have obstacles. He gritted his teeth, forcing his arms through another rep. Again, she watched him punish himself day after day, and finally confronted him during their evening routine. What are you trying to prove? She asked as she administered his medications. That I'm not weak. You're not weak. You're paralyzed. There's a difference. Is there? He looked at her with such intensity it stole her breath. Every day I wake up unable to walk, unable to run, unable to defend myself if someone attacks. That's weakness. That's vulnerability. In my world, vulnerability is death. You're not going to die. You don't know that. He grabbed her wrist, not hard, but firm enough to make his point. The man who shot me, the people who helped him, I eliminated them. But that doesn't mean there aren't others waiting for their chance. And now I'm an easy target. Understanding crashed over Aaliyah. That's what this is about. You're scared. I'm realistic. No, you're terrified. You've built your entire identity on being dangerous, being powerful, being untouchable. And now you're in a wheelchair, and you think that makes you weak, makes you vulnerable, makes you less than what you were. She pulled her wrist free. But here's what you're missing. You're still terrifying. You're still powerful. You just scared off a team of investigators without standing up once. You still run your organization. You're still you, Ji-sung. The wheelchair doesn't change that. It changes everything. Only if you let it. They stared at each other, the air between them electric with frustration and something else, something neither of them wanted to name. Ji-sung broke first, looking away. You should go. Why? Because if you stay, I'm going to say something I can't take back. Aaliyah's heart hammered. What if I want you to? Don't. Don't what? Don't acknowledge that something's changed between us? Don't admit that this stopped being professional weeks ago? She knew she was crossing a line, knew she should stop but couldn't. I see how you look at me, Ji-sung. I feel how the air changes when we're alone. So either tell me I'm imagining it, or admit what's happening. Nothing's happening. Liar. He turned back to her, and the raw emotion in his face made her step backward. You want the truth? Fine. I think about you constantly. I find excuses to call you to my office just to hear your voice. I count the hours until physical therapy because it's the only time I can touch you without it being inappropriate. I lie awake at night in this useless body and imagine what I'd do if I could stand, if I could walk to your room. If I could, he cut himself off. But I can't. I can't give you anything except danger and complications and a future that ends with either my imprisonment or my death. So no, Aaliyah. Nothing's happening. Nothing can happen. The confession hung between them, devastating and honest. Aaliyah's voice shook when she finally spoke. You don't get to decide what I want or what I can handle. I'm deciding what's best for you. That's not your choice to make. It is when I'm the one who'll destroy you. He turned his wheelchair away. Leave, please, before I make this worse. She left. Because staying would mean crossing a point of no return, and despite everything, despite the want and the tension and the impossible pull between them, she wasn't ready for that. Not yet. That night, Aaliyah couldn't sleep. She paced her room, Ji-sung's words playing on repeat. Finally, at 2 a.m., she gave up and went downstairs for water. She found Taewon in the kitchen, cleaning his gun at the table. He looked up when she entered. Can't sleep? He asked in his accented English. Too much on my mind. She poured water, then sat across from him. Can I ask you something? Maybe I answer. How long have you worked for Ji-sung? 15 years, since we were young. Taewon's expression softened slightly. He saved my life. I was in bad place, bad people. He gave me purpose, gave me family. And you've seen him through everything? The rise of his organization, the shooting, the paralysis? Yes. Has he ever... She struggled to find the right words. Has he ever let anyone close? Personally close? Taewon was quiet for a long moment. Then, before the shooting, there was a woman. Hae-won. They were engaged. Aaliyah's heart clenched. What happened? She left. 1 week after the doctor said he would never walk again. Taewon's voice was flat, but anger simmered beneath. She said she couldn't marry a cripple. Said it wasn't the life she signed up for. That's horrible. Yes, but also understandable, maybe. His life is dangerous. Being paralyzed makes it more so. She chose safety. He looked at Aaliyah directly. I tell you this because I see how he looks at you, how you look at him. And I think you should know what you're walking into. Does he still love her? No. He hates her. Hates that she was right to leave. Hates that she saw his weakness before he accepted it himself. Taewon reassembled his gun with practiced efficiency. He will never ask you to stay, Miss Aaliyah. He will never admit he wants you. Because asking means risking another rejection, and I don't think he can survive that again. The information settled over Aaliyah like a weight. Then what do I do? That's not for me to say. But I will tell you this, if you're going to leave, leave now, before he needs you more. Before leaving, break something that can't be fixed. And if I stay, then stay all the way. Don't give him half measures. Don't give him hope and then take it away. Taewon stood, holstering his weapon. He deserves better than that. After he left, Aaliyah sat alone in the dark kitchen, her mind spinning. She thought about Ji-sung's confession, about his ex-fiance's betrayal, about the impossible situation they'd created. She thought about the smart choice, the safe choice, and then she thought about what she actually wanted. By morning, she'd made her decision. She found Ji-sung in his office, working through paperwork with the methodical focus he used to avoid thinking about uncomfortable things. We need to talk, she said from the doorway. If this is about last night, it is. She closed the door behind her, leaning against it. You said nothing can happen between us, that you can't give me anything except danger and complications. Aaliyah, I'm not finished. She crossed her arms. You're right. This is complicated. It's ethically murky and probably stupid and definitely dangerous. But here's what you're wrong about. I'm not some naive girl who needs protecting from reality. I'm a grown woman who's made her share of bad decisions and survived them. I know exactly what your life is. I know the risks. And I'm choosing to stay anyway. Ji-sung's expression was carefully neutral. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to see where this goes, whatever this is. But I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. No more walls, no more protective distance. If we're doing this, we do it for real. The silence stretched impossibly long. Then, I can't walk. Can't dance with you. Can't take you places without assistance. Can't... His voice cracked. I can't be the man you deserve. You keep deciding what I deserve. Stop it. She moved closer. I don't want some theoretical perfect man. I want you. Complicated, dangerous, wheelchair-bound you. That's my choice. Can you accept that? He looked up at her, and for the first time since she'd known him, Park Ji-sung looked vulnerable. Completely, devastatingly vulnerable. If I let you in, he said quietly, If I let this be real, and you leave, I won't. You can't promise that. No, she agreed. I can't, but neither can you. Neither can anyone. Life doesn't come with guarantees, Ji-sung. It comes with chances. And I'm asking if you're brave enough to take one. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly. Aaliyah took it, lacing her fingers through his. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably. I'm going to disappoint you. Definitely. But you're staying anyway? I'm staying anyway. He pulled her closer, not far. Just close enough that she had to bend down to maintain eye contact. His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. You're extraordinary, he said, and I'm terrified of you. Good. We match. When he kissed her, it felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Soft and fierce and charged with weeks of tension finally released. His hand tangled in her braids, pulling her closer, and she braced herself against his wheelchair's armrests, careful of his legs, mindful of his limitations. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ji-sung rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he said. I know. The investigators, my organization, the danger. It's all going to touch you now, really touch you. I know that too. And you're still sure. Instead of answering, she kissed him again, slower this time, deeper, with all the certainty she felt and none of the fear. When she pulled back, she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Hope. It was terrifying. It was perfect. It was the moment everything truly began. Act 5. The truth. The next 3 weeks existed in a strange bubble. Professionally, nothing changed. Aaliyah still provided medical care, still maintained routines, still kept careful documentation. But privately, everything was different. Evening dinners became longer, filled with conversations that wandered from philosophy to childhood memories to dreams neither had dared voice before. Physical therapy sessions gained a new tension, every necessary touch charged with awareness. Nights found them in Ji-sung's office, her reviewing medical journals while he worked, existing in comfortable silence. They didn't hide their relationship from the staff, impossible in a house where privacy was an illusion. But they didn't advertise it either. Taiwan treated Aaliyah with new respect, like she'd passed some unspoken test. Mrs. Bayek started teaching her Korean with actual investment, preparing her for a longer stay. Even Dr. Han noticed the change during his weekly visits. You're good for him, he told Aaliyah one afternoon. I've never seen him this settled. Settled isn't a word I'd use for Ji-sung, Aaliyah replied, watching through the office window as Ji-sung took a call, his face animated with whatever problem he was solving. No, but content maybe, like he's found something worth fighting for beyond revenge and survival. The observation stayed with Aaliyah, because Dr. Han was right. Ji-sung had changed, still sharp, still dangerous, still absolutely in command of his world, but softer with her, more willing to laugh, to share, to let her see beyond the armor. On day 73, everything shattered. Aaliyah woke at dawn to voices downstairs, angry voices. She dressed quickly and found Ji-sung in his office with Taiwan, Ryu, and 2 men she'd never seen before. What's happening? She asked from the doorway. Ji-sung's face was carved from stone. We have a problem. A shipment was intercepted. The authorities are connecting it back to me. But you said everything was encrypted, protected. It was. Someone inside gave them information. His voice was deadly calm. Someone close enough to know operation details. The implication hung heavy. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. You think I... No, he said it firmly, meeting her eyes. I know you didn't, but others might not be so certain. Ryu spoke in Korean, his tone accusatory. He kept looking at Aaliyah. English, Ji-sung commanded. Now. Ryu switched languages, his eyes hard on Aaliyah. I'm saying it's suspicious. The American arrives and suddenly investigators show up, then a shipment is compromised. Maybe she's working with them. Maybe this whole thing was a setup. Watch your mouth, Ji-sung said quietly. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. She has access to everything, your files, your schedule, your security details. Ryu stepped closer. How well do you really know her? How do you know she's not... Enough! Ji-sung's voice cracked like a whip. You forget yourself, Ryu. Miss Miller has proven her loyalty repeatedly. The leak is coming from inside the organization. Yes, but not from her. How can you be sure? Because I had her investigated before I ever hired her. Full background check, financial records, communications monitoring. She's exactly who she claims to be, a nurse who needed a job. Ji-sung's eyes didn't leave Ryu. Can you say the same about everyone in this room? The accusation shifted the dynamic immediately. Ryu's face paled. The 2 unknown men exchanged glances. We all have questions, one of them said carefully. The timing is unfortunate. The timing is calculated, Ji-sung corrected. Someone wants us fractured, suspicious of each other, divided, and here you all are, playing exactly into that strategy by accusing the one person who has the least to gain from betrayal. Taiwan spoke up, his English rough but clear. The leak came from the Taiwan office. We confirmed it this morning. Someone there accessed shipping manifests they shouldn't have seen. Taiwan? Ryu's surprise seemed genuine. But it means we have a bigger problem than we thought. Ji-sung leaned back in his wheelchair, his expression calculating. Someone's been building a case against me for months, systematically compromising operations, gathering evidence, positioning themselves to take over once I'm arrested. Who? Aaliyah asked quietly. That's what we're going to find out. He looked at Taiwan. I need a full audit. Every person with access to operational details, every communication in the last 6 months, every financial transaction. That will take days. Then you'd better start now. The meeting dispersed, leaving Ji-sung and Aaliyah alone. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For being a complication. For making people suspect. Stop! He wheeled closer, taking her hand. You're not the complication. You're the only simple thing in my life right now. The only thing I'm completely certain about. The words settled something in her chest. What happens now? Now, I find the leak and eliminate it. Then, I restructure everything to make sure this doesn't happen again. He squeezed her hand. But I need you to understand something. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The investigators have enough now to justify warrants, surveillance, maybe arrests. Being close to me is going to put you at risk. I know. And you're still staying? Did you really have me investigated? She asked instead of answering. A slight smile. Thoroughly. I know about your ex-boyfriend, about your mother's medical bills, about the parking tickets you forgot to pay in 2022. I know everything. That should creep me out. But it doesn't. No, because it means you were protecting yourself. And probably me too, in your way. She studied his face. Do you really trust me? Completely? With my life, he said simply, which is terrifying because I don't trust easily. I know. Taiwan told me about Haewon. Ji-sung's expression hardened. Did he? Don't be angry at him, I asked. She moved closer, kneeling so they were eye level. I understand why you're scared, why you push people away. But I'm not her. Ji-sung. I'm not going to abandon you when things get hard. Things are already hard. They're about to get impossible. Then we'll be impossible together. He pulled her into a kiss that felt like desperation and determination mixed together. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Promise me something, he said. Anything. If the investigators come for me, if there's an arrest, you walk away. You don't defend me, don't stand by me, don't sacrifice yourself for me. Promise. Ji-sung, promise me, Aaliyah, please. She wanted to refuse, wanted to insist she'd never abandon him, but the plea in his voice was so raw, so genuine, that she found herself nodding. I promise. Another lie. They both knew it. The next 72 hours were chaos. Taewon's audit uncovered a web of betrayal spanning 3 countries and involving 7 members of Ji-sung's organization. The mastermind was someone Aaliyah had met only once, a man named Dae-jung who ran operations in Hong Kong. He's been planning this for over a year, Ji-sung explained during a tense strategy meeting. Building his own network, slowly compromising mine, positioning himself to take over everything once I'm arrested or killed. So what do you do? Aaliyah asked. What I always do. I eliminate the threat. The words were casual, but the implication was clear. Aaliyah felt cold. You're going to kill him. I'm going to stop him. The method is secondary. No, it's not. It's murder, Ji-sung. That's not secondary. The room went silent. Everyone stared at her, this American nurse who dared challenge their boss. Ji-sung's voice was dangerously quiet. Leave us. The room emptied quickly. When they were alone, Ji-sung wheeled closer. Don't do this, he said. Don't make me choose between you and survival. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to find another way. There is no other way. Dae-jung has already killed 3 people who were loyal to me. He's threatened my remaining allies, compromised my operations, and handed evidence to investigators that could put me away for life. He's declared war, Aaliyah. You don't fight a war with mercy. You fight it with strategy, with intelligence, with leverage. She grabbed his hands. You're brilliant, Ji-sung. You've built this entire organization through calculated moves and smart positioning. Use that. Find what Dae-jung values, what he's vulnerable to, and exploit it. You don't have to kill him to win. You're naive. I'm hopeful. There's a difference. He pulled his hands away. This is my world. These are my rules. If you can't accept that, then what? You'll push me away? End this? She stood her ground. I love you, Ji-sung. I love you enough to tell you when you're wrong. And killing Dae-jung is wrong. Not because of morality, not because of ethics, but because it's the expected move. It's what he's counting on. He wants you to react with violence so he can paint you as the monster and himself as the victim. The words hung in the air. She'd said it, the thing they'd both been dancing around for weeks. I love you. Ji-sung stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then quietly, don't love me. I'm not worth it. Too late. Aaliyah, I love you. Deal with it. She crossed her arms. And because I love you, I'm asking you to find another way. Not for me, for yourself, because killing Da-jung makes you exactly what your ex-fiancé accused you of being. A monster who can't evolve beyond violence. The blow landed. She could see it in his flinch, in the way his jaw tightened. That was cruel, he said. It was true. Silence. Long and heavy. Then, Ji-sung reached for his phone. Get me everything on Dae-jung's operations. Financial records, associates, vulnerabilities. I want to know every weakness, every pressure point, every secret he's tried to hide. Aaliyah's heart leaped. You're going to try another way? I'm going to try your way. But if it doesn't work, if he escalates, if people die because I hesitated, he looked at her directly. Then I go back to my methods. Agreed? Agreed. Over the next week, Ji-sung orchestrated a campaign of information warfare that was beautiful in its brutality. He leaked Dae-jung's financial crimes to Hong Kong authorities. He exposed Dae-jung's affair with a rival organization's wife. He systematically dismantled every alliance Dae-jung had built, using evidence and leverage instead of violence. Aaliyah watched him work, saw the strategic genius that had built his empire. This was Park Ji-sung at his best, cold, calculating, absolutely relentless. By day 86, Dae-jung had fled Hong Kong with investigators and angry gangsters, both hunting him. His organization collapsed, his allies abandoned him, and Ji-sung's empire remained intact without a single death. You were right, Ji-sung admitted one evening as they sat in his office, the crisis finally resolved. Strategic destruction is more effective than physical elimination. I usually am, Aaliyah said with a slight smile. Don't gloat. It's unattractive. You love me anyway. He turned to look at her, his expression serious. I do love you. I didn't want to. Didn't mean to, but I do. The confession should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt heavy with the weight of what loving each other meant, the complications, the dangers, the impossible future they were building. What happens now? Aaliyah asked. Now, we deal with the investigators. They still have the evidence Dae-jung gave them. They're still building a case. He wheeled closer, taking her hand. And you need to decide if you're really ready for what comes next, which is a life with me. Real life, not this bubble we've been living in. A life where investigators follow you, where people try to use you against me, where loving me makes you a target. He squeezed her hand. A life where every day could be the day it all falls apart. Aaliyah thought about it, really thought about it. About the safe life she could have back in Chicago, about the normal relationship she could find with someone uncomplicated, about all the reasonable choices she could make. Then she thought about Ji-sung, about the way he challenged her, respected her, trusted her with his vulnerabilities, about the way he looked at her like she was the only solid thing in his spinning world. I'm ready, she said. You're sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He pulled her close, kissing her with an intensity that spoke of relief and gratitude and desperate hope. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to disappoint you eventually, he warned. I'm counting on it. Otherwise, where's the fun? He laughed, that genuine, unguarded laugh she loved so much. And in that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of his criminal empire and the threats still circling, Aaliyah felt something she hadn't felt in years. Home. 3 weeks later, at 2 a.m., Aaliyah woke to find Ji-sung's side of the bed empty. They'd been sharing a room for the past month, a natural evolution that neither had questioned. But tonight something felt wrong. She found him in his gym, not in his wheelchair, but on the floor, pulling himself through exercises with brutal determination. Can't sleep? She asked from the doorway. He startled, actually startled, which was unusual for someone so constantly aware of his surroundings. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I just noticed you were gone. She moved closer, sitting on the floor beside him. Bad night? The investigators served new subpoenas today. They want financial records going back 10 years, communications with every associate, medical records from my accident. He continued his exercises, his arms straining with effort. They're tightening the noose. Can they actually charge you with anything? Eventually, yes. They have enough circumstantial evidence to make a case. Not a strong case, but enough to arrest, to prosecute, to potentially convict. He paused, breathing hard. I give it 2 months before they make their move. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. 2 months. Maybe less if they find the right pressure point. She watched him work, saw the determination and desperation in every movement. Ji-sung, stop. You're going to hurt yourself. I need to be stronger. You're already strong enough. No. He collapsed back against the mat, sweat coating his skin. I'm not. I'm weak, dependent, vulnerable. If they arrest me, if they put me in a cell, I can't even... His voice cracked. I can't even use a bathroom without help, Aaliyah. How am I supposed to survive prison? The raw fear in his voice broke her heart. She lay down beside him, taking his hand. You're not going to prison, she said firmly. You can't promise that. Then we'll figure it out together, whatever happens. He turned his head to look at her. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you months ago. Aaliyah's heart began to pound. Okay? The accident. The shooting that paralyzed me. It wasn't completely random. And the fall that damaged my spine wasn't accidental. He took a breath. I saw the ambush coming. Had time to avoid it. But I chose not to. What? Why? Because I was tired. Tired of the violence, the paranoia, the constant fight to stay on top. Part of me thought, maybe if I'm injured badly enough, I can step away, retire, disappear into medical necessity. His laugh was bitter. Stupid, right? Thinking paralysis would be an escape. Aaliyah struggled to process this. You let them shoot you? I didn't let them shoot me, but I didn't try as hard as I could have to avoid it. And when I fell, when I felt my back hit that concrete, there was this moment of relief. Like finally, I had an excuse to stop. Ji-sung. But it didn't work, because you can't escape what you are. The organization still needed me. The investigators still wanted me. All I did was trade one prison for another. He squeezed her hand. And then you showed up. And for the first time since the shooting, I wanted to get better. Not to walk again. I've accepted that won't happen. But to be better. To deserve someone like you. Tears pricked Aaliyah's eyes. You already deserve me. No, but I'm trying to. He turned onto his side, facing her fully. Which is why I need to tell you the rest. The rest? The paralysis. It's not permanent. The words didn't make sense. Aaliyah sat up abruptly. What? Dr. Han has been running tests for months. There's nerve regeneration happening. Slow, minimal, but measurable. With surgery and intensive therapy, I could potentially regain some function. Maybe even walk with assistance. Aaliyah's mind reeled. But you said, Dr. Han said, we lied. Because if people knew I could potentially recover, it changes everything. The power dynamic in my organization shifts. The investigators intensify their efforts before I can regain mobility. My enemies see an opportunity to strike while I'm still vulnerable. He sat up too, facing her. So I've stayed in this chair, played the role of the paralyzed crime boss, used it as both shield and weapon. The betrayal stung. You lied to me. For months. Yes. While I provided your medical care, while I documented your condition, while I... She stood up, anger and hurt warring inside her. I trusted you, Ji-sung. Completely. And this whole time you've been lying to my face. I know. Is that all you have to say? I know. She paced, trying to process. What else have you lied about? Us? Your feelings? This whole relationship, is it real or just another strategy? He grabbed his wheelchair, pulling himself into it with practiced efficiency. Everything between us is real. That's why I'm telling you now. Because I can't keep lying to you. Not about this. Why now? Why tell me at all? Because the surgery... If I have it, if I try to regain function, the recovery period will be dangerous. I'll be even more vulnerable than I am now. And I need to know. He struggled to find words. I need to know if you're staying because you love me or because you pity the paralyzed man who needs a nurse. The question landed like a punch. Aaliyah stopped pacing, turned to face him. You think I pity you? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. She wanted to rage at him, to scream about the betrayal, to pack her bags and leave like she should have done months ago. But looking at his face, vulnerable and uncertain and desperate for her answer, she couldn't. I don't pity you, Ji-sung. I never have. She moved closer. I love you because you're brilliant and infuriating and dangerous and somehow gentle only with me. I love you because you challenge me, respect me, trust me enough to show me your weaknesses. I love you despite the wheelchair, not because of it. And if you have surgery, if you regain function, if you can walk again, I'll still love you. Because it was never about what you could or couldn't do physically. It was always about who you are. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. It's annoying. She knelt in front of him. Are you having the surgery? I don't know. The risks are substantial. Failed surgery could make things worse. But if it works, if I can regain even partial function, he cupped her face. I could stand beside you, hold you properly, protect you the way I want to. I don't need you to stand to protect me. You do that fine from a wheelchair. But I want to. I want to be whole for you. You're already whole. Broken in some ways, sure, but whole where it counts. She kissed him gently. Have the surgery because you want it for yourself, not for me, not for your organization, for you. He pulled her closer, kissing her with desperate intensity. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, "The surgery is scheduled for next week." What? I made the decision 3 days ago. Didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd try to talk me out of it, or that you'd realize you were in love with a man who's been lying about his condition for months and leave. I should leave. This is crazy. You're crazy. This whole situation is insane. But you're not leaving. No, she admitted. I'm not. Why? Because I'm apparently crazy too. He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. We match. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Dr. Hahn explained the surgery in technical detail, nerve reconstruction, vertebrae stabilization, extensive physical therapy afterward. The recovery would take months, possibly years. Success wasn't guaranteed. There's a 40% chance the surgery accomplishes nothing, Dr. Hahn said bluntly. A 30% chance it makes things worse. Only a 30% chance of meaningful improvement. Those are terrible odds, Aaliyah pointed out. They're the only odds I have, Ji-sung replied. The night before surgery, they lay in bed together, neither sleeping. I'm scared, Ji-sung admitted quietly. Me too. If something goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I need you to know something. He turned to face her in the darkness. You made these last 4 months worth living. Before you, I was just existing, surviving, going through motions. You reminded me what it feels like to actually want tomorrow. Ji-sung, let me finish. If the surgery fails, if I wake up worse than before, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll leave, that you'll go back to America, find someone normal, build a real life. Don't waste yourself on a future that's just caretaking and disappointment. I'm not promising that. Aaliyah, no. I'm not promising to abandon you if things get hard. That's not how love works. She grabbed his hand. We stay together. Good outcomes, bad outcomes, whatever happens, together. That's the only promise I'm making. He pulled her into a kiss that felt like goodbye and hello mixed together. Like fear and hope and desperate need all combined into one moment. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, and I'll be there when you wake up. The surgery took 14 hours. Aaliyah spent every minute in the waiting room, pacing, praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in, making deals with the universe. Tywin sat with her, silent and solid. Mrs. Bayek brought food neither of them ate. Even Ryu showed up, offering awkward comfort in broken English. Finally, Dr. Hahn emerged. His face was unreadable. The surgery went as well as could be expected, he said carefully. No complications during the procedure. Now we wait to see if the nerve reconstruction takes. When will we know? Days, maybe weeks. His body needs time to heal before we can assess function. He squeezed her shoulder. He's in recovery now. You can see him in an hour. That hour felt infinite. When they finally led her into the recovery room, Ji-sung was unconscious, intubated, connected to more machines than she could count. She took his hand, careful of the IV lines, and just held it. I'm here, she whispered, just like I promised. He woke 6 hours later, groggy and disoriented. His eyes found hers immediately. Hey, she said softly. Hey. His voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. Still here? Still here. Stupid. Probably. He squeezed her hand weakly. Love you. Love you too. Now rest. The hard part comes later. He drifted back to sleep, and Aaliyah settled into the chair beside his bed, prepared for the long recovery ahead. 3 days post-surgery, Ji-sung could wiggle his toes. It was the smallest movement, barely visible, easily missed. But Aaliyah saw it during her morning check and nearly cried. Did you see that? She grabbed Dr. Hahn. Did you see? Dr. Hahn ran tests, his professional demeanor cracking into a smile. Nerve function is returning. This is excellent progress. But Ji-sung's reaction was subdued. It's just my toes. It's a beginning, Aaliyah insisted. Over the next 2 weeks, the progress continued. Sensation returning in patches, muscle twitches becoming controlled movements. Small victories that added up to something miraculous. And through it all, the investigators circled closer. On day 16 post-surgery, they served an arrest warrant. Park Ji-sung was officially charged with international smuggling, conspiracy, racketeering, and a dozen other crimes. They arrested him in his hospital bed, reading him his rights while he was still connected to IV medications. Aaliyah stood frozen, watching them handcuff him, carefully, mindful of his medical condition, but still handcuffs. It's okay, Ji-sung told her calmly. We knew this was coming. This isn't okay. You just had major surgery, which is why they're doing it now. I'm weak, vulnerable, can't run. He looked at the lead investigator. I assume I'll be held in a medical facility during trial preparation. Correct. You'll be transferred to the secured wing at Seoul National Hospital. Then let's get this over with. Ji-sung looked at Aaliyah one last time. Remember your promise. Walk away. Build your life. No. Aaliyah. No, she repeated firmly. I'm not leaving. I'll visit every day they allow it. I'll testify if needed. I'll wait however long it takes, because that's what love means. The investigators led him away, and Aaliyah stood in the empty hospital room, her heart breaking and rebuilding simultaneously. Tywin appeared beside her. He'll fight this. He has good lawyers. I know. And you're really staying? I'm really staying. Even though it could be years before he's free, even though being associated with him will destroy your career, your reputation, your future, even though, Tywin nodded slowly. Then you'll need protection. The organization is in chaos. Ji-sung's enemies will see this as an opportunity. You're vulnerable. So what do? You let me protect you, until he can do it himself again. 6 months later, Aaliyah sat in a secured visiting room at Seoul National Hospital, waiting for Ji-sung to be brought in. The trial had been delayed twice, once for his medical needs, once for procedural issues. His lawyers were confident they could beat most of the charges, but the process would take time. Years, potentially. The door opened, guards wheeled Ji-sung in, and Aaliyah's breath caught. He wasn't in his wheelchair. He was using a walker. Surprise, he said with a slight smile. 3 months of intensive therapy. I can walk about 20 feet before my legs give out. Dr. Han says with more time, I might manage 50. Aaliyah stood, moving closer. Ji-sung, that's incredible. It's something. He made his way slowly to the chair across from her, the guards hovering nervously. Once seated, he waved them back. Give us privacy. 10 feet, I'm not going anywhere. They reluctantly complied. Ji-sung reached across the table, taking Aaliyah's hands. You're still here. Where else would I be? Chicago, living your life, being free of this mess. I am living my life. This is exactly where I choose to be. He studied her face, searching for doubt or resentment. The trial could take 2 more years. Even if I'm acquitted, I'll have enemies waiting for me. The organization is fractured. Half my allies have turned. Coming back to me means coming back to chaos. I know. And you're still sure? Instead of answering, Aaliyah pulled something from her bag. A small box. Ji-sung's eyes widened. What is that? Open it. Inside was a simple silver band, a man's ring. I can't ask you to marry me, Aaliyah said quietly. The power dynamics, the circumstances, it wouldn't be fair. But I can give you this, a promise that when you get out, when this is over, when you're free, I'll still be waiting. And then you can ask me, if you want to. Ji-sung stared at the ring, then at her, something breaking and reforming in his expression. You're insane, he whispered, completely. I might go to prison for 20 years. Then I'll wait 20 years. I might lose everything. My organization, my money, my power. Good. Maybe you'll finally realize you're enough just as you are. He laughed, that genuine laugh she loved. You're extraordinary. So you've said. He took the ring from the box, turning it over in his hands. Then he looked up at her, his expression serious. I have to tell you something. One last truth before you fully commit to this insanity. Aaliyah's heart beat faster. Okay. The paralysis, before the surgery, when I was still in the wheelchair, I could walk. I've been able to walk for the last month before the surgery. The words didn't compute. What? The nerve damage was real initially, but it healed faster than expected. About 2 months before I told you the truth about potential recovery, I'd already regained the ability to stand, to walk short distances. I chose to stay in the wheelchair. Aaliyah felt like the ground had dropped away. Why? Because it was useful. Because people underestimated me. Because it gave me advantages I didn't want to lose. And because, he paused, because I wanted to know if you loved me at my most vulnerable. If you would stay with a man who truly couldn't walk, who truly needed you, who truly was as broken as I felt inside. The betrayal should have been crushing, should have made her walk away. Instead, Aaliyah understood. You tested me, she said slowly. Yes. You lied to me for months to see if I would leave. Yes. That's horrible, Ji-sung. I know. And manipulative and cruel and all true. Aaliyah stood up. The guards tensed. But she just moved around the table until she stood directly in front of Ji-sung. Then she slapped him. Not hard, just enough to sting, enough to make the point. Don't ever lie to me about something like that again, she said firmly. I understand why you did it. I even understand the twisted logic. But if we're doing this, if we're really building a life together, it has to be built on truth. Complete truth, even when it's ugly. Ji-sung touched his cheek, a smile playing at his lips. You hit me. I did. I probably deserved it. You absolutely deserved it. Are you leaving? Aaliyah looked at him, this complicated, damaged, brilliant man who'd lied to test her love, who'd stood up in front of guards just to prove he could, who'd given her every reason to walk away and seemed genuinely surprised when she didn't. "No," she said, "I'm not leaving, but I am changing the terms." "What terms?" "When you get out of here, when this trial is over, when you're finally free, we start completely fresh. No lies, no tests, no manipulation. We build something real based on who we actually are, not who we think we need to be. And if I can't do that, if honesty isn't something I'm capable of, then I'll leave. Because I can love you through a lot of things, Ji-sung, but I can't love you through continuous betrayal." He stood up slowly, proving he could, proving the truth of his recovery. The guards moved forward, but he waved them off. He stood directly in front of Aaliyah, close enough that she could see the individual strands of gray in his dark hair, the fading surgical scar on his neck. "I can't promise I'll never lie," he said quietly. "My world is built on deception, but I can promise I'll never lie to you about us, about my feelings, my intentions, my truth. That's yours, always. That's all I'm asking for." He slipped the ring onto his own finger, unusual, backward, but somehow right. "Consider this my promise. When I get out, when this is over, I'll ask you properly, and then you can decide if a life with me is really what you want. I already know the answer. Maybe, but ask me anyway. Let me do at least one thing in this relationship the traditional way." Aaliyah smiled. "Deal." He pulled her close, kissing her with guards watching and cameras recording, and his whole future uncertain. But in that moment, none of it mattered. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing all of me. The lies, the manipulations, the darkness, and choosing to stay anyway." "That's what love is," Aaliyah said simply. "Seeing someone completely and deciding they're worth it, all of them, even the broken parts. Especially the broken parts. Especially those." The guard announced time was up. Ji-sung moved slowly back to his walker, his legs shaking slightly from the exertion of standing. As they led him away, he looked back one last time. Aaliyah raised her hand in a small wave. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that made everything worthwhile. The door closed between them, and Aaliyah sat alone in the visiting room, the weight of her choice settling over her like a blanket. She'd seen all of him. The violence, the lies, the manipulation, the damage. She'd witnessed his darkest moments and his desperate attempts to protect himself through deception. She knew exactly who Park Ji-sung was, and she loved him anyway. Not because it was smart, not because it was safe, but because love had never been about safety. It was about truth, the messy, complicated, sometimes ugly truth of two damaged people choosing each other despite every reason not to. She pulled out her phone and texted Taewon, "I'm ready to go home." His response came immediately. The house or the apartment? Aaliyah thought about it. The smart choice was the apartment, maintaining distance, protecting herself, staying separate from Ji-sung's world while he was imprisoned. Instead, she typed, "The house, I'll wait there." Because she'd made her choice. She'd seen all of him and he couldn't let her go. Not because he wouldn't, because she wouldn't let herself be let go. The truth had locked them together, not his crimes, not his power, not even his love, but the simple, devastating fact that she knew everything and chose to stay anyway. That was the trap. That was the lock, and neither of them had the key. You've just witnessed Aaliyah and Ji-sung's impossible choice. Now I need to know, are you Team Aaliyah for staying, or do you think she should have walked away when she had the chance? Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever loved someone so deeply that you saw all their flaws and chose them anyway? What would you do in Aaliyah's position? Wait for someone facing years in prison or protect your own future? Be honest. This story was designed to make you feel that tight chest, that moral paralysis. So tell me, did it work? Are you trapped by this ending just like Aaliyah is trapped by her love? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story kept you glued to your screen until the very end, hit that like button and subscribe to Love Intention for more stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the impossible choices we make for the people we can't let go. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it locks you in forever.